What's up, everyone? Life after sports. We're back with another episode with my main man, Breven, former teammate of mine. We're going to chop it up, talk about some life experiences, going to Chicago State, being in the trenches, talk about breaking now in sports cards and coaching. So, without further ado, Breven, introduce yourself. It's the people and, what have you been up to?
Yes, sir. Hey, thank you for having me, CJ. It's awesome to be on here. Yeah, my name's Breven. I played a little college ball as a pitcher. Nowadays, I'm coaching and I do a little card breaking. Kind of found myself in it out of nowhere, came up out of nowhere, and it's definitely turned into my passion. But yeah, no, spent a lot of time in college. Spent a lot of time in college. Really, when I tell people about it, when they ask, if I played college baseball, I say, yeah, I did. In reality, I really experienced college baseball because spent a lot of time rehabbing from had the Tommy John my freshman year, right before I started, or right before we started our season, our freshman year. And it was the first time in my life that I wasn't able to play baseball at all. And it was, I mean, you were there, you saw it up close and personal. I was out of shape, man. Like, I really felt like for the first time, I had to look at myself as something other than the baseball player and kind of find an identity. It actually was a good learning point, from where I'm at now, because once I finished baseball eventually in college, it took me a long time to kind of answer that same question, like what my identity is and whatnot. Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride.
So you talk about that. Talk about your mental health going through that. Like you're just now getting to college and you're stripped away from baseball. It's got to be tough, moving away from your family and friends, being, for you at least an hour and a half from them, being in a new situation. Walk me through like, your headspace in that time.
But yeah, mental health was a big part of that. That was really, the first time in my life where I kind of started to really understand that, because before I always kind of masked myself and like identified myself through baseball. But when it came to that, it really gave me a lot of time to think. So, I mean, I dealt with the yips too. There are points where it was like almost comical. Like, you know, one day it's just I woke up and, made a bad throw or whatever. And all of a sudden I couldn't, there was certain kind of throws I couldn't make, the simplest throws, even like pickoffs, throws to second base, stuff like that, even in catch. I mean, I know you remember some funny times where we were all sitting around, you guys were like, you're like, bro, like this is crazy. Like, because I could I'll throw it right to your chest from about 200 feet away, but stand anything within 30 feet and it's going 20 feet over your head. It's the weirdest thing, and that had a lot to do with the surgery, I think, because that day that I felt the UCL pop, the collateral ligament, the day I felt it go, I did a lot of reflecting, like, what is it that I did wrong, and from there, it became a lot of like a thinking game with pitching. But, it was almost good to have that recovery time, that down break period, because it gave me a lot of time, like I said, to reflect kind of on who I was as a person. And ultimately, it kind of helped me as a pitcher too, and as a thrower in general, because, you know, I started to like kind of defeat the yips in my own ways. And in my head, I feel like I mastered it and made it, my own thing. But in terms of the mental health, yeah, that always played on it. There was a lot of times where I was nervous. This is more later on. Once I was healed, there'd be days I'd be nervous to go to practice, because I'm afraid, one, I'll be, going too hard on a PFP or something, and I'll throw it a second and I'll snap again or something. But it just put a lot of uncertainty in my head, I guess you could say, in terms of my mental health.
I think that's such an underrated discussion point. People don't realize that have really never dealt with injury. I've had two knee surgeries and man, you don't ever want to do it again. So now you're thinking like,
Hmm.
am I gonna run different or throw different in your case, right? You know, uh,
Yeah.
I assume that you ended up throwing differently than you started throwing, right? Your arm slot naturally is different. You know, you think that you're probably nursing it, especially coming back from such a big injury. You know, your arm slot and it feels different. You never really get over that in the back of your head. In the moment, maybe you're not thinking about it, but subconsciously your body just takes over and into that new motion, which, for me, my
Uh-huh.
leg doesn't really stretch out all the way like it should. So like you just
Hmm.
naturally put in that position. So definitely see that, definitely a underspoken about topic as far as, mental health and athletics goes.
You hit it right on the head. Yep, you really did. Yep.
Segueing, tell me how you got to Chicago State. Before, our recruiting class, the Fab Five, came to be, you were committed to Upper Iowa. I don't know how the heck you ended up maybe being a Peacock, but like all the way in Iowa, who happened to be in the same conference as Chicago State or St. Cloud State, mind you, where
Yep.
I, finishing my career at. So, talking about committing to Upper Iowa and then ending up at Chicago State.
Yeah, so it was when I look back on it, I almost always forget about Upper Iowa. It was really just kind of like I think I was pressured, I kind of felt pressure to get it over with because I think, at the time, as you probably remember, like that was kind of the time where Twitter was still really big in the sense where you're seeing all the commitment updates and stuff. And like, I think I kind of rushed to that. Upper Iowa was a Division II school. Majority of my other offers were Division III. So I kind of looked at it as like, well, this is going to be my best option. I want to get it over with before Christmas time. I ended up committing after taking one visit there. The things I learned on my visit there, like the closest McDonald's being 45 minutes away, somehow it didn't affect me at the time. And looking back, I'm like, I know myself. I never would be able to live in a town so secluded. Like, coming from like a Joliet, like a smaller version, kind of almost of Chicago, just not as many people, obviously. But, you know, when I was in high school, my dream always was to eventually live in Chicago. And I mean, playing in Chicago, obviously, college baseball, that was my two dreams together. So I kind of always wanted to play at UIC, maybe even Northwestern. Knew I didn't have the grades for Northwestern, but so with Upper Iowa, what was it? I think right after the start of my second semester, there was like this talk show or something. Like they had a Peacock talk show or something, and they had the baseball coach on there, and I went on and so I watched it, and they were talking about the incoming recruiting class, including me. And they mentioned me towards the end and said I was a pitcher that needed time and needed to develop and would probably spend a year or two on the junior varsity. And that was not the impression I was given on my visit. The impression was that I'd be, throwing as a freshman, all that. So the second I saw that, the next morning I went to my high school coach's office and I said, how do I do this? I'm decommitting. So I sat down with him. I called the coach and I told him that I was just disappointed about, what I'd kind of heard. And we ended up ultimately decommitting. But in reality, I'm kind of glad I was kind of leaning towards it anyway. That was just kind of like the final nail in the coffin. I didn't really have any communication from them after I initially committed but yeah, and then what was it? I spent a couple months, maybe two uncommitted, and then last second, it was in the beginning of May. Uh, through my travel coach, Long Shots Baseball out of Downers Grove. I told him I was like, listen, I would love to play in Chicago. I want to play close to home. If I could play D1, I'd love to. And he said, let me make a call or whatever. Next thing you know, Chicago State reached out to me the next day, and it turns out they actually had been recruiting me since I was a sophomore, knowing that Zach Thomas, went to Chicago State, a couple other guys from Joliet West. So I had been on their radar, but didn't get that official offer until May. But to me, it was like a dream come true because, like I just said, I told you, my dreams were to play college baseball and to live in Chicago. So it was like, perfect. But I felt blessed, and I think I was the last one, right? I was the last one of the Fab Five.
It's close. Yeah, you and Dylan. I know Dylan was also late.
Yeah,
It's funny. I mean, when we talk about Dylan, him walking on to being a Friday night pitcher to now, being at the minor league level for the Giants to Double A is such a crazy story. The twists and turns of that team, like what everyone's doing now, is pretty remarkable. When we
yeah,
look back at it, it's almost like the last chance U of Division I baseball. Like
it really is. We called it that. Yeah,
if we had a documentary, I think that it would have done numbers. Being this circumstance,
absolutely, absolutely. Especially being on that baseball team, man, because it really was like a fraternity at the school. Because like really, we all saw each other all the time. A lot of us lived together, so it was fun. It was such an experience.
what I will say is the environment of Chicago State, not the greatest. Anyone that knows about Chicago State knows this, but for those that don't, Chicago State's located 2 blocks away from O Block, which is the most dangerous city or dangerous area in America, with crime and murders being one of the highest in the U.S. So we're really in the trenches.
Yeah.
And for people listening, Breven and I stick out the store's thumb on this campus.
Yeah.
So just being put into a situation that you and I aren't really familiar with from our hometowns, it was pretty interesting. And like honestly, looking back, like that really made me have a lot more street smarts. But in the time, we're like, holy shit, I can't believe there's, rats running around. There's no food in the calf. This the stuff we can't even describe or make up, happened to us while we were there.
Mm.
And like I'm looking back, like how on earth did we go through that? Like, uh, we're still here. So, ultimately, like I'm thankful for that. But sitting back and I'm telling these people these things that have happened to us, it's just like a movie. So, if I would
Mhm.
love you to talk about like your input on that and what your experience were.
Yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. So, one of the first things I remember after committing there, I didn't know too much about the school with the exception of I went to like one game. I was doing my research before and happened to see on the demographics that, it was like less than 2%, white students. And, I kind of didn't really expect that at that point, but, being from Joliet, it's really, really diverse there. You have like a lot of everything. So it was not like anything I'd never seen before, but it was just like it was actually living in that culture. And it's like for the first time in your life, you're a minority almost. But it was like I don't take that experience for granted at all because it was like some of the funnest time I've had in my life getting to kind of learn about that culture, like even little things, like you said, like with the street smarts. I remember my first night on campus, Reggie and I we drove down to a Walgreens and I was wearing, I'm pretty sure, a Sox hat just like this, and I think I had it maybe backwards and like a little, like we were in the car, so I think it slid maybe like a little to the side or whatever. And he told me, he's like, you can't wear your hat in there like that. We went down, what was it? Cottage Grove right there. We were down on Cottage Grove, just little things like that. And like the parties, first time getting into Hennessy. I didn't know anything about Hennessy until I went to school
Any
there. And I remember there's this dorm party I'm at, because we had the suites and, freaking like it's like shoulder to shoulder, like nowhere to walk, dude. And there's someone just going around, just pouring like with a Hennessy bottle, pouring like it in people's mouth. And all I can remember is how warm it was. It was the warmest. That's all I could ever think of when I think of that. But just little things like that, man. Other than that, like, like the few things are like the culture shock, like going to Popeyes for the first time and seeing the bulletproof drive-through window. That was my first time seeing something like that. Um, but then,
hold on, bro.
after a
Hold on.
year
Let's
or
not
so,
forget. Let's not forget you were taxing us to drive us to Popeyes since we didn't have a car and you had a car. This man was
I had to run a
$5
business.
ahead and he made us buy his food.
I had to run a business. You guys were getting the pretty end, bro. I was broke, bro. Remember? I
Man
had to
was
run that
taxing.
business. Man, but my car was like the campus taxi, bro. Everyone, like, bro, I remember random people, like I can't remember his name, but there was one day some dude never talked to before asked me, he said he had something really important or whatever, blah blah, and he's like, I'll literally pay you 20. I was like, all right, bro. Sure enough, got it back as soon as possible, and it was like someone I didn't even know. But that's another thing about Chicago State. Like everyone there, they really treated everyone with respect. There wasn't really any of that. Like you didn't really feel like anyone was really higher up. Even like the fraternities and the sororities. There's another thing that I always tell people about. Like at our school with the fraternities and sororities, like you think of being in the house having huge parties, like, doing keg stands and stuff. No, not at Chicago State. They dance, bro. They dance and they dance, bro. Remember in the rotunda, they used to have the
You know,
dance offs? Yeah, dude. And that was cool. That was the first time in my life I'd seen something like that too. But, and I always tell people about it. I still have the videos like in my Snapchat memories and I'll show them like, I lived in this. This was my life for a few years. No, I don't, I wouldn't change a thing about my time at Chicago State. Like in terms of, like just going to school there and stuff. Met a lot of cool people, got to learn a lot of things really about that culture with it being a predominantly black institution. And really, yeah, I recommend it to people, but you know, I don't know how they take it.
No, no, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
During the recruit, I mean, I went through the recruiting process a handful of times, and there was other HBCUs that I looked into. I'm like, cause I'm used to this. Like, I'm used to, this environment. Like, it really builds character for a lot of, reasons why the diversity has helped me tremendously in the workforce. Not everyone looks like us. Not everyone looks like everyone.
Uh-huh.
So getting along with everyone is so key. And like that really like kickstarted it really quick, maybe quicker than most people, just getting thrown to it. The culture shock and diverse or that diverse campus it was, really helped me. And I was thinking about going to Arkansas Pine Bluff. Well, take Chicago and then put it, in the middle of nowhere with, 105-degree summers. And I don't know if you've ever smelled paper mill or like whatever the paper mill smell is. It is the worst
Uh-huh.
smell you'd ever smell in your life. And my dad and I get off this flight, we're on this visit, and my dad's like, "Why does it smell like shit? Like, why does it smell like cow manure?" Like, no, it's like this paper mill, whatever. And I'm like, does it smell like this every day? And like, yes. We're like, all right, we're gonna get back in this flight. We gotta cancel this visit. This ain't gonna fly.
Dude, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, dude. Freaking, a place that was like that that couldn't stand the smell like the second you like pulled up in the area was Greeley, Colorado, where University of Northern Colorado was. Did you ever get a chance to go there?
No,
Did
I
you
didn't get to
travel
go,
there?
but no, I'm familiar with that school. But once you have that smell in the air and they tell you it always smells like this, you're like, heck no.
That's what I'm saying. I remember talking to Blake and saying like, bro, how do people go to school here? These guys breathe this air in because there was like it was right down like a couple blocks down from their baseball field. I remember saying to Blake like they literally just breathe this air in every day. How do they do it? Like we think we got it bad over at Chicago State, but
I remember going to the Walmart with all you guys. We're getting our thing.
mm,
And we came up on something nice. We came up on that griddle. They forgot to seal
yeah,
it underneath the cart. Man, we were the true pioneers of NIL. You were whipping up pancakes, eggs, bacon, and started slinging it and getting a couple bucks here and there.
trying to sell some pancakes, bro. Trying to sell some of the mini pancakes on that hot plate, bro. Yep, I
Man,
remember that.
now people got Hellcats, SRTs, and all that, and we were slinging pancakes, bro.
Oh my God, we
They don't
just
understand it. It's a real hustle.
We just missed it, bro. We just the NCAA didn't catch us. They couldn't catch us. Not in the dorms.
Did you ever have to get drug tested at Chicago State?
Um, yeah, there was one time. Oh, it was my junior year. Um, it was actually it was like right after the second semester had started. Um, and I had just had my back surgery, so that was another injury I had. So my junior year, yeah, I blew out my back right after I
Uh,
threw out my back, I should say. Yeah, threw out my back. We were deadlifting. We were doing like a team workout, and Blake was actually my lifting partner. I remember telling him like, "Bro, my back is done." I didn't. I woke up the next day, and to go to the bathroom, I had to crawl, and I screamed the whole way there. Everyone came out of their room, bro, back spasms, the worst pain I've ever had in my life. But so I got surgery for that in January, and so the NCAA submitted like I think it was like 7 or 8 names for a random drug test, like like maybe 2, 3 days later, and I was on that list. And obviously, I didn't abide by all the NCAA's drug rules. We did indulge a little bit, so obviously, I'm naturally worried, but it was on a Friday, I believe they sent it out. They let us know. And then I was going to Florida that night, right a couple days after my surgery, to go see my cousin was getting married there. So I remember getting the text from Coach Harden, and he was like, "The NCAA picked you." I still have the screenshot. It'll come up every now and then. So the NCAA picked you for a random drug test, and he's like, go to see Pepe or whatever by what time. I text back like, oh, and I didn't tell them I was in Florida. That was the other thing because it was in season and stuff. So I just kind of played the excuse of, oh, I'm still recovering from my back, so I don't know if I can make it. And Coach Harden, God bless him, man, he's like, don't worry, we'll take care of it for you. So it was like a huge weight lifted off my back. I was in Miami, and when I got that text for him saying that, I was like, oh my God, thank you. But that was the only scare. That was the only true scare.
Yeah, it's crazy sitting back, seeing not just Chicago State, but just other schools I went to. Like I've seen people get high during a game. I've seen people do steroids in the locker room. I've seen all this shit, and I've never seen one person test positive. I just
Yeah,
either the luckiest people on earth, or the NCAA just doesn't care.
yeah, yeah. The same year, the same drug test. One of the freshman buddies that lived with us, he got picked, and he also, he was no angel, and he was freaking out, freshman, and came back, negative. He was fine. So I don't know if it was just they didn't test for it. I know they don't now. I know, like, I believe they got rid of testing for it now, but back then I think it was on the list, but I think it was kind of like one of those things like, whatever.
Right, we got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, exactly.
So on the road trips, not only that you're redshirting because you're injury, right? You get picked to come on all these road trips to do the Twitter. Like that's like so unheard of and so Chicago State. Like awesome. It was probably the coolest thing because you're gonna travel to all these cool ass places. Don't worry about performing, throwing. You're just hanging with the boys, making a few tweets every inning. So that was probably the life for you, huh?
Oh, dude, I tell people all the time. Well, actually, the whole reason it came about was because that first trip to South Carolina, right, when we played LIU, Long Island, Brooklyn. I think they brought me along for that one just because I was a freshman. It was like my first trip, and I think because obviously I was recovering, and while I was there, I offered to do the Twitter, and I guess it was like the Friday night game. We won our first game of the season that year. I remember after this Friday night game.
Won 9 more games the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I think that was like maybe, yeah, one of the last handful of wins or whatever, but for sure. But no, so after that first night, I was tweeting that whole game, I was kind of doing it with my own style. I had a little background in like communications, like I'd written for my school paper and stuff, I'd done some freelance writing, so it kind of came naturally. And I remember the next day in the hotel on Saturday morning, Jocko was like, "Hey, we got a lot of positive reviews about you on the Twitter last night." It's like, "Oh, really?" So from then on, I kind of got the term Twitter guy. I loved it, and you remember it kind of sucked that freshman year. I had a phone that like if it wasn't plugged in, it died.
Yeah.
So I had to walk around with a portable charge. Remember, I had a cord coming out of my pocket everywhere I went that spring.
You were trapped.
Yeah, literally, and I had the two phones going. Yep, yeah. But dude, yeah, I loved doing that. It was such a blessing, and my sophomore year. Uh, it was more the same. I only pitched like 6 innings, and I don't think I ever flew somewhere and pitched there. It was always like on a bus trip, like a weekday game, you know what I'm saying, or at home or something. But they still brought me. I didn't miss one trip my sophomore year, and I did the Twitter, and I got really into it with the gifts, and kind of made it my thing. And then junior year rolled around, was planning on playing. It was supposed to be my first year, like, really being in the rotation and whatnot. Got hurt again. So naturally, Twitter guy was calling. So I went back to it for a few months and I did that again. And that was the season that it got cut short right before I was supposed to return from my back.
That's
Yeah,
just how things usually work out. Just as things are getting right, life throws you a curveball. I don't
100%.
I think what blows people away the most about our travel is that per diem. Getting that cash right off the bus. And let me remind you, we were getting our meals paid. Like we would go out and have dinner, and that was a free 150 to the pocket. No, like
But yeah,
SEC, Big Ten, Big 12 players, they were getting like $50 like on a card, bro. Nothing like we were getting. We must have been embezzling money or something because I don't know how we came up on all this money.
that still don't make sense to me to this day. And still, when I tell people that, they're like, "What?" Because if you think about that in reality, we traveled like especially that first month when because we couldn't play in Chicago, obviously. Those first few months, you traveled every weekend. So think about it. You're making like 1,000 a month just or
We're
not, or
straight
maybe like 800 a month, 800 to 1,000 a month, just for friggin', just for traveling.
800,
Essentially getting paid to play.
800 to, yeah, we were getting paid to play. Hold on. We were,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I like the way you worded that. And not only
yeah,
that, we were getting paid to play, go to all these sweet places, but we were going to nice dinners. We were going to like steak houses and like we weren't going to just Chick-fil-A. We were going somewhere nice, probably, and have at least one nice meal.
yeah. Oh yeah, it was always the Chick-fil-A, man. It was always, yeah, some there. They'd always pull out some restaurant. They'd say, "Oh yeah, Jocko used to come here all the time," or something of that, you know.
You know, the chef.
Yeah, he knows the chef. Yeah, yeah.
So just as things were looking good, COVID hits. You know, last time you really put in the cleats besides playing summer ball, what when's the decision, COVID hits and you decide not to carry your, on with baseball, where you're just kind of over it with being injured, or just like, hey, I probably, don't want the Chicago State degree, probably would like, another school on my diploma.
Yeah, so it was a really weird process those last few months. So obviously we found out officially that the program was getting cut in June. And so it's like less than 2 months to go until the start of the next school year, and really we don't know what we're doing. And Chicago State, they had initially offered they were gonna, uphold everyone's scholarships and everything. I was still a walk on at the time, so it really didn't make a difference to me. So my decision kind of came down to I was so upset and frustrated with that school and the school board after it happened that I just, I wanted nothing to do with the school anymore. Like I kind of put it as like I don't want to give money to that school anymore because what they just did to us. So initially my whole plan was to continue playing, and I was gonna go to a smaller school and, play a couple years or whatever and just see how it goes. I had an offer from St. Francis and Joliet, and I thought it was a really cool idea. It would have been to go home and play for my last year because I knew I was going to hang it up pretty soon. Had a couple D3 offers, like in Chicago, that I was kind of thinking about, but kind of got to a point where I realized like my mom lived out in Vegas. She moved out to Vegas a few years prior. My dad was getting ready to move there, and we kind of said, like, listen, you could stay, but you're gonna kind of be on your own, and like, so I kind of I really thought about it, and it was really tough leaving. It was tough because I never thought I would leave Chicago, and like I told you earlier, it was always my dream to live in Chicago. So it was really tough. But my mom actually, she went out and she applied for me by herself without telling me to UNLV, and then one day sends me the acceptance letter, and she said you got accepted, come live with me. And it took about a week of her like talking me into it, but I was like, you know what, fine, let's do it. So I ended up moving out here, just going to UNLV. I'm finally finishing up my degree now. But yeah, in terms of the COVID season, just overall it was just it's almost like a fever dream, like a blur. It's just how everything happened. We were in Hawaii when the season was canceled. We had just landed. We weren't there for no more than 2, 3 hours. We're actually sitting at a Denny's or an IHOP or something, and I was in the WACSAC, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and I had gotten a message from them saying the NCAA is getting ready to cancel the whole season. So I kind of started telling everyone, and then next thing you know, Coach Harden, he called a team meeting in the lobby, and it was tough. Coach Jocko, he wasn't there. He couldn't make the trip, so it was just Coach Harden. And dude, it sucked because there was a lot of seniors in that room who knew they were done, and they knew with that news they played their last game. And like there were some tears, man. It was hard to be around that and see that. And me at the time, I thought I had no idea that that was going to be my last time too, because it wouldn't be till 2 months later that they'd come out of the blue and cut the program. That wasn't even like a thought at the time.
That's, I think COVID ruined a lot of baseball careers with shorting the draft. And then a lot of seniors, right, that are like, man, like this was me my last go around. Now I got, soon tie up and go to, work for a living. That
Hmm.
that's a tough pill to swallow, right? And like that's our identity. And as ball players, suiting up, putting the cleats on to now, working a desk job for a lot of people. It sucks, and I hate that for them. The way it went down for the COVID era, years. So now that you're done playing baseball, what have you gotten into, and where do you see yourself moving forward?
Yeah, so when I first moved out here, kind of like I said before, it took me a while to kind of find an identity. At first, I just wanted to get a job that I knew I could make consistent money at. I ended up I served and bartended at Red Robin for like about 2 years, and towards the end of that, I got into coaching because I got to a almost like a bit of a depressed stage, and actually, it was my mom who kind of snapped me out of it. She was like, have you seemed out of it lately? When I was just doing the serving, and it's like, yeah, I think I just, it's like, cause I came out here and, I'm used to having like all my friends always being around and stuff. But when I came out here, it was like, it's just work, come home, play video games, kind of go to bed. So my mom, she'd actually reached out to a guy that she'd known out here when she was younger, because my mom grew up in Vegas, who happened to run his own travel program. And one day I woke up to a call, I remember, and a voicemail from him, like offering me to come out and like have do a little interview for a coaching spot, and kind of it was like the first time I really thought about coaching. I never saw myself doing it, but it hit me like maybe baseball is kind of what I'm missing right now. So went out there, got that opportunity, and I was coaching at one point. I was coaching three teams at a time. There would be like every day of the week. I didn't have a break. It'd be like Monday at 4 or 5. I have to go coach my 12U team, and then I have to leave practice 10 minutes early to go drive 30 minutes to go catch my 17U practices team or 17U team's practice. Just stuff like that. I stayed really busy, and I loved it. And I was really like embracing a new coaching style to where, me, I'm not a yeller. I'm not confrontational. I was very motivational. No matter their age, I try to treat them with the same respect I would, like an 18, 19-year-old. So I've been coaching the same group of kids the last few years, the same core group of kids. Over time, players leave. There's a lot of politics in travel baseball nowadays. A lot of new teams trying to come out of nowhere and start their program here, and kind of poach players away. It's nonstop here. But I've remained with the same core, and they're kind of the reason I'm sticking with it right now. Part of the reason, for a little bit, I thought I could maybe make a career out of that. But, the more and more I thought about it, there's just not a lot of money to be made in coaching. And it's sad. It's sad because there's a lot of people like with a lot of knowledge who would dedicate their full time to doing it, but it's not like sustainable. Like even coaching high school, I had an interview for a junior varsity high school job, and when I asked about the pay, it was like we get like a $1,200 stipend at the end of the season. And it's like if you do that in hours, or like if you do the math, that's like 40 cents an hour, dude. It's
Not even
like
like that's not even the gas money to get to and from.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's like it's not
You're paying
sustainable.
them to work for them.
Exactly. Like you pretty much like the only way being a high school coach is like possible is if you're a teacher. And if you don't want to be a teacher, then well, I guess you can't coach high school baseball. I mean, unless you're loaded or you have some job from home, or you have like stocks or something and like, you don't have to work, like that's the only way. Like a guy like me, not too far removed out of college, there's no shot that would work for me. But it was tough. So, I did some other things. I did a little bit of work with an adoption home, or a foster home. Really enjoyed that. I still do a little bit of work there. And then one day I just happened to go on Indeed because I was like, I need to make a little more money. And I remember asking myself, what's the one thing I love? And I put in baseball cards in the Indeed in the search bar. This Tombstone Collectibles comes up, and it was breaking. It was virtual card sales, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of familiar with that. So I'm like, this sounds too good to be true. I've never heard of this place. It said it's like 10 minutes away. It's like, there's no way. So I apply. I get a text like that night, come in Monday for an interview. I ended up, getting the job. I started as a shipper, and I really started loving shipping, because my passion is like really in sort, like just going through cards. Like I just love doing stuff like that. And then, after a few months there, I was blessed enough that they gave me the opportunity to be a full-time breaker. I'd done it here and there a little bit, but just like seat two, so I'm just sleeving, top loading. I've kind of been, lately I've been doing a little bit of seat one, switching off with a new guy, Ryan, that I'm working with. And, we're both kind of learning at the same time, and it's cool, but I know without a doubt that this is something that as long as it's there, I could do it the rest of my life, and I would be absolutely happy with that because it's like I wake up and I look forward to going to work.
I think for a lot of people, waking up and doing what they love is a challenge. So when you find the right thing, man, like you just gotta attack it. And I'm so happy that you love cards. I love cards. I also
Hmm.
for a living. It's so much fun to see the community around it. It's not like politics, like travel baseball. We're talking about 2.5 by 3.5 cardboard that has autographs,
Hmm.
times on them, and patches. So like for to think that like some of these cards are worth what they're worth is insane to a lot of people, but for us it's like basically like trading stock. Like we're like doing stock market, opening these packs, right? you know
Hmm.
it's so much fun being in trading cards. It's never boring because there's new releases, you're interacting with the chat. We were talking off camera, like there's a community behind it. Like not that you get to see these people you know every day in person, but now you're interacting with them virtually. Like you look forward to talking to whatever his username who's constantly buying breaks from you, you know, and maybe when you go to these shows, you get to actually interact with them and actually build friendships. Like I've built so many friends that I had never even met that I'm talking and texting with, finally meet up with. And it's like we haven't skipped a beat and like we've been friends this whole time. So it's just a really, really cool aspect behind that.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, like, yeah, like I told you earlier, it's kind of like, it's like sometimes when you walk into a bar, like if you walk into a bar in your hometown, you're going to see some people and stuff like that. It's kind of like that going on the stream every day. It's like you never know if there's gonna be new people hopping in. Most of the time, when there's gonna be the same people coming in, and you look forward to seeing them and having conversations with them. It's so weird because it's like you don't even see their face, but I feel like I know them. And it's like they spend the whole time looking at you, so obviously they know what you look like. But it's like for a lot of these people, I have these images in my head, and yeah, like you said, a lot we've met like in person, like people come by the office and stuff. Like my image is always way off, and it's like it's crazy how I've had this like concrete image in my head. It's like I had no idea. It's just, you get to know them so well, and enjoy like talking to them so well. That's like you feel like you know them. It's really cool. It really is. Like you said, it's like the hobby is just good people, like everything. There's always going to be those know-it-alls and the comp police, of course, as we call them. But the hobby is just fun, dude.
I think the hobby is a great place, and I think it's so inclusive. Anyone can be in it. You don't have to have $1 million to join. It's such a great outlet to a lot of people. So I'm just thankful for the hobby itself. Now,
Absolutely.
what I'll close with is if you had to tell yourself something, your younger self now, what would it be a piece of advice you'd tell your younger self now that you would use moving forward?
That's a great question. I think about this all the time, like what I would do. Like, I guess I wouldn't say like if I could do anything over, I wouldn't change it. But if I had the opportunity to go and, talk to my younger self, I guess I would just tell him like, time, it sounds so cliche, but time really does fly by. Like it's seriously insane. I feel like with my life, once I graduated high school, I feel like my life hit the fast forward button, and it's like even like our freshman year at Chicago State, like living in the dorms does not feel like it was that long ago. Dude, that was 8 years ago. It's crazy. Like, so often I'm like, man, we're just old. So I guess what I would tell my younger self is just like really appreciate it. Really appreciate everything because you're never going to live in this, or have these opportunities again, like I think especially as athletes, we're always thinking about what's next, or what are we doing next? We never really live in the moment. But I there's a lot of times where I wish I would have just stopped and kind of enjoyed, because we'll never have like, the little things, those long trips. Remember those long travel days that we freaking hated? Like, remember when we came back from South Carolina, some of the guys didn't get like, we were on the group of people that didn't get back till like midnight, 1 in the morning, and like the connecting flights, dude. Like, you hated it back then, but it's like, dude, now every time I'm in an airport, all I can think about is, when I used to be in there with the team and like you miss it, man. Especially I'll see teams all the time now together and all in their matching uniforms and their travel shoes. They're do not
Travel.
wear shoes. Yep, the travel shoes. Yep, I see them all. It's like, damn man, I do miss that. But yeah, I would just tell my younger self, appreciate the little things, like slow down on life a little bit.
I think that's a great piece of advice. It's so tough to do. I think once people master that, or if you get at least a close grip on it, living in the moment, I think you appreciate things more. I think that people don't appreciate the small things in life. They're missing a lot out on a lot of things by looking fast forward to what's the latest and greatest. It's like in the moment, like those little things, being in the moment, wearing the travel suits, splitting a Domino's pizza on a 15-hour drive on the bus for a midweek.
Mhm.
It sucks, but when are you ever going to be with a bunch of your boys that live all over the country again? Like, when was the last time all five of us were in the same room? There's been a couple of us in the same room, like yourself and Blake and I for dinner. All of us collectively in one place at one time. Like, it is so tough to do, and I really wish that I was able to reminisce a little bit more on it while I was there.
No, yeah, 100%. That's the hardest saying when you think about like you say, like the five of us haven't seen each other in a long time, and it's like, back in that moment, the five of us were there, and not only were we all there together, but we're living in the dorms, we're playing college baseball, we're waking up at the 5 a.m. conditionings together and stuff. Like, we're doing everything. Like, we were like, you're like a family. You're like a really tight knit family for you, especially all of us being the freshmen, the five freshmen with each other. It was like, you know, it would just, we didn't appreciate it, I think we're looking forward to, like, even in the fall, like we're looking forward to the season starting, or oh, I can't wait to be done with the indoor practices. But it's like, I mean, you never know. This could be your last year of indoor practices ever. I mean, hell, I'd kill it to be able to like just go swing around like in a team practice setting and like, just be able to enjoy it.
What I would give for some Jocko BP right now, just like that dad BP, 30 mile
Oh
an hour
God,
mountain dick, just smacking balls.
I got right down the middle every time. Yeah,
And he had that
didn't matter how it
little
looked.
funky throw
Didn't matter how it looked. The man got it down the middle every time.
every time.
What was it? Foul pole sports. They forgot to put that in there. They forgot to mention that he throws it down the middle every time.
They forgot that. Most definitely. That post went so viral. I probably got that post done 100 times to me.
Oh my God, dude. I know. Jocko, man. It's like, dude, he's quality, man. He's quality BP.
Quality BP for sure. I can't thank you enough for your time, your stories, the laughs, the memories we've had. It's so awesome. And I know you're going to do great things now, being a breaker and, inspiring the kids that, you coach. So thanks for your time today, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you for life. You're like a brother, man. And hey, it's so cool being able to tell people all about our release stuff. Like, yeah, that's my buddy. He went and met them and got the autograph. They're all drooling over Livy. Like, yeah, my buddy's the one who went and got her autograph.
Yeah.
Just cool things like that. But no, man, I always appreciate you and thank you for having me, man. It was awesome.
Appreciate you, my guy.